We've got two Asian American super lawyers on today's show, coming up right now on the Leadership Voice. Welcome to the Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbudo. Today's show features two Asian women that have achieved success in the legal industry, and they're here to share their journey and wisdom with our Leadership Voice viewers. Joining us today will be Elizabeth Yang, founder and sole proprietor of the Law and Mediation offices of Elizabeth Yang, and Cyndie Chang, managing partner at Duane Morris, LLP. We also have a special leadership lesson being delivered by Professor Charles Smith. But let's start things off with today's quote of the day. Today's quote comes from Sonia Sotomayor, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. In every position that I've been in, there have been naysayers who don't believe I'm qualified or who don't believe I can do the work, and I feel a special responsibility to prove them wrong. Our first guest today on the Leadership Voice is Elizabeth Yang. Elizabeth Yang, a UC Berkeley graduate, has been practicing law since 2007, specializing in intellectual property law, including business law and family, patents and copyrights and trademarks. She has a degree in electrical engineering and computer sciences, as well as a JD and MBA. In 2011, Elizabeth founded her own practice and is now the owner of the Law and Mediation offices of Elizabeth Yang. From 2016 through 2018, Elizabeth was recognized among the Top 100 Civil Lawyers Award and the Top 40 Lawyers Under 40 Award by the National Trial Lawyers Association. In 2017 and 2018, Elizabeth was recognized by Thomson Reuters Super Lawyers as a rising star, ranking her in the top 2.5% of lawyers in California, and also presented with the Lawyers of Distinction Award, recognizing her as the top 10% of lawyers in the United States. So we are pleased to welcome on the Leadership Voice, Ms. Elizabeth Yang. Elizabeth, so great to have you on the show today.
So great to be here.
I have been looking forward to this day, so it's great to be able to share a little bit about your journey and to share some of your wisdom that young, promising attorneys might be able to benefit from.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Great. Well, let's get things started. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've grown your law practice to have three offices in Southern California.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started our practice in 2011, and Los Angeles was our first office. It was difficult to start off as a small boutique. In the beginning, clients come from word of mouth, just referrals from friends, and we slowly had to build our reputation and branding up so that clients would slowly flow in naturally. And we started our Orange County office soon after that because there was a big demand for legal help in Orange County, and we just opened our Monterey Park office last year.
Oh, that's wonderful. So as you've grown and you've been able to open each offices, how do you know that it's time to open another office?
I think it just comes naturally. We don't really plan ahead, like we're going to open this office in such and such year. It's just if there's a demand for it, then we're like, okay, we'll open another office. There's enough attorneys to fill the offices.
Okay, terrific. So as you think about the journey that you've taken, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have had to overcome to achieve success in your career so far?
Yeah, for a smaller boutique firm like our office, I think one of the biggest challenges is building branding and reputation amongst the community. There's so many lawyers out there, as you know, a lot of competition. So in order for us to really stand out, we have to show the community what we're capable of. And in the first couple years, it's very difficult to do that. Now that we're in our 11th to 12th year, we already have a pretty good brand in the community. So the clients just come in very naturally. But in the beginning, it's very difficult to set that brand.
Oh, that's great. So could you talk a little bit about your role in the community? The reason I ask is whenever I am on social media, I always see an incredible presence that you have in the community. Could you talk about your role in the community and how important that has been for the success of your law practice?
Yeah, so social media, which you mentioned, is very important nowadays. A lot of our marketing is done on social media, which includes Facebook, Yelp, Google, anything, even Instagram. We even have an Instagram page. But getting the word out in the community is definitely very important, and being involved and giving back is also very important. So being involved in the community, I'm a part of the National Association of Asian American Professionals, as well as the Southern California Chinese Lawyers Associations.
Oh, that's great. So what might others learn from this as they're starting their practices, in terms of how important it is to be involved in the community?
So for any entrepreneur wanting to start their own practice, it's important to network, have a name in the community and know people. That's how you're going to get word of mouth referrals, who you know. So if you're involved with organizations and giving back, automatically people know who you are, because when you attend events, they meet you and exchange business cards and keep in touch, have coffee. And next time they have a friend who needs legal support, they know who to refer them to.
No, that's great. So what challenges do you believe that you've overcome? What challenges do you believe are unique to Asian women in the legal industry?
So in the smaller boutique area, as time has progressed, there are a lot more Asian American women entrepreneurs, which is a good thing. I have a lot of colleagues in my industry that are Asian American women, and we all support each other. And actually, in the family law arena, which I specialize in, some of my clients prefer women attorneys over men attorneys. They'll specifically seek out a female attorney because they feel like the female attorneys are more compassionate and sympathetic towards their cases. On the other end of the spectrum, you will later be speaking with attorney Cyndie Chang, who is in a large law firm, and she'll probably speak to how there is still a pretty low glass ceiling for female attorneys, especially Asian American, to become leaders in their law practices, including managing partners or even just regular partners in a large law firm. There's definitely a shortage of Asian American women.
So what are some of the things that you've done to overcome some of the challenges that are unique to Asian American women in the legal industry?
I think personally, I've just set an example, done as much as I can for the community to show other Asian American women that whatever you set your mind to is indeed possible. Right now I'm the national president for NAP and also the vice president for Scala. So setting these leadership roles, being seen in the community, taking on leadership positions, just putting myself out there and doing whatever I can, I think that already sets an example for the future generations.
Oh, that's great. So if you were talking to a young, promising attorney that had aspirations for opening their own law practice, what advice would you give that attorney? And I assume there'll be lots of young attorneys that will be watching this interview, so you have a chance to talk directly with them. What advice would you give somebody if they wanted to open their own law firm?
So first and foremost, I would want them to know that anything is possible. Don't set any limits for themselves. The sky is the limit, so whatever they seek is indeed doable. And the second thing is be nice to everybody, including opposing counsel, opposing parties. No matter who it is, you never know where your next referral is going to come from. And sometimes the best referrals come from opposing counsel who have dealt with you and felt like you are very professional. So just be nice to everybody, network, and meet as many people as you can, because ultimately it ends up to be who you know rather than what you know in this industry.
Oh, that's great. I want to thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being on the show with us today. We're going to come back in a little while and we're going to answer questions from our audience, so you'll come back for that. But I want to thank you so much for this interview. And now it's time for a featured segment of the Leadership Voice. It's today's Did You Know? Today's Did You Know comes from the American Bar Association. In 2018, there were 1.34 million licensed attorneys in the U.S. of which 65% were men and 85% were Caucasian. But examining current law school graduates shows that women make up 50.3% of current law school graduates. So some gender equality in the legal industry can be expected moving forward. It's now time for today's Leadership Countdown. Today we bring you the top 10 reasons to become a lawyer. Number 10, there's great perks like meeting community and business leaders. Number 9, you can lead a more flexible work schedule. Number 8, you can have a global influence. Number 7, you will develop transferable skills. Number 6, you may have a great work environment. Number 5, you can specialize in diverse practice areas. Number 4, you have intellectually challenging work. And the number 3 reason why you should become a lawyer, you will have the opportunity to help others. Number 2, you may enjoy the prestige and professional status of being a lawyer. And the number 1 reason to become a lawyer, you may have great earning potential. Stick around. We have Cyndie Chang in the studio, and we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Well, we found here at Honda Center and the Anaheim Ducks that the Center for Leadership brings expertise in doing research, in doing training. The faculty that has come and given the training to our employees does all the research themselves. They're not pulling this information off the shelf. They're out there researching themselves, talking from firsthand experience, and it brings such a level of competency that we, again, don't find from other trainers that are on the market.
Well, simply put, is what really differentiates and distinguishes Fullerton and the Center for Leadership really is your expertise. You guys are able to create customized content for our business based on true research.
The faculty from Cal State Fullerton, obviously they're professors of their field. They have deep knowledge and research, but also, aside from the theory, they really bring in some practical examples, and they bring in a lot of interactive activities.
The Bringing Learning to Work initiative is our way of meeting the needs of Orange County businesses and communities. When our clients ask the Center for Leadership to come to bring learning to work, the clients know that they're getting cutting-edge information, the latest thinking in the field, but they're also getting world-class training. Welcome back to the Leadership Voice. Our next guest today on the Leadership Voice is Cyndie Chang. Cyndie Chang is the LA Managing Partner of Duane Morris, handling complex litigation and trial involving business disputes, involving contracts, real estate, trademarks, insurance coverage, class actions, and products liability. She serves industries including retail and consumer goods, manufacturing, energy, and telecommunications. She is past president of the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association and the Southern California Chinese Lawyers Association. She serves on the ABA Commission on Women in the Profession and Board of Directors for Loyola Law School, Los Angeles. She has been recognized as one of the most influential minority lawyers and leaders in law by the LA Business Journal. She is a trailblazer by SCCLA, a top 50 women super lawyer by Southern California Super Lawyers, a top 100 California women lawyer by the Daily Journal, and a NAPABA 2010 Best Lawyers Under 40. Cyndie graduated with honors from Johns Hopkins and Loyola Law School, LA. Please welcome Cyndie Chang. Cyndie, I'd like to welcome you so much to the show. We're so glad to have you.
I'm so happy to be here.
It's a great chance for young lawyers and folks that are interested in the legal industry to hear some of your journey and learn from some of your wisdom. So maybe we could start things off if you could tell us a little bit about how you were able to manage your career to eventually becoming the managing partner at Duane Morris.
Sure. Well, I started off at several law firms before my current position. I was actually at a solo practitioner's office, a small firm, and a medium-sized firm, and eventually came to my current position at an international law firm, Duane Morris. And I figured, trying different things out, I really thrived in the environment that I'm at right now. At a large law firm, it had mentor programs and it had initiatives for women and diverse attorneys. So that really was a place that I felt at home. And during my career, when I was progressing from a junior lawyer to where I'm at now, I got an opportunity to work with various partners in different offices, getting assignments from partners like in New York or Chicago or Texas or whatever. And that actually helped me hone my craft because I got to work with different personalities and get to pick what I liked and disliked from working with different superiors and got to add that to my own arsenal and figure out how I want to become a partner just like them. So when the time came for my promotion to partnership, it served me well that I worked with a lot of different partners because they all were impressed with my work product. Obviously I worked really hard trying to impress them and eventually got promoted to partner. And several years ago, I also became managing partner, which is basically the head of my office in Los Angeles. And a funny story about that is that I was in trial during this time, and I had a late night phone call from the chairman of my firm. And obviously, if the chairman of your firm is calling you late at night, it has to be something very important. And so, I'm tired from trial, and he talks to me about, well, we want to promote you to managing partner. And, I was surprised. And I remember hesitating a little because I told him, I said, well, I'm pregnant right now. So I was pregnant with my first child, and I didn't know how the firm would react to that. And so I said, I don't know if this is the right time for me, because of the pregnancy. And I'll never forget when my chairman said, he said, Cyndie, your pregnancy is short term, but this position and the investment in you is long term. And that really meant a lot to me. So I said, great, well, I'm taking my full maternity leave. And that's where I'm at now, yeah.
No, that's great. So as you think about the success that you've had, and you've had incredible success, and you've made such a huge impact in the legal industry here in LA and really nationally, talk about your biggest challenges that you've had to overcome to advance in your career.
So I speak a lot about this in my past roles as I'm the bar president of the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association. And one of the challenges that Asian American women face and minority women face is implicit bias in the workplace. I don't think that nowadays we're seeing explicit bias, but it's the unconscious implicit bias that is affecting our industry. And you can just see it by the statistical data. So I was just looking at last year's data, but even though we have about half of law students graduating from law school as women, we look at a model such as the law firm model, and we see that women are not making partners at that same levels, at about half. They're actually a lot less than that, substantially less. And so why is that? Why are women leaving the law firm and finding other places to work and use their law degree? So I think, trying to figure out what's the issue, and obviously we are doing a lot of work to advance women and minorities in the profession. So I think the implicit bias is one of the long-standing challenges, and it could be as nuanced as, for example, we had a business development event that it was a golf event to meet some clients, and everyone in the room was talking about, okay, are you going to go? Are you going to go? And it was asked to all of the men in the room, and they didn't realize that maybe I might be interested in playing golf with some of our clients. And obviously it's unintentional, but it's the small subtleties that we have to check ourselves and realize, are we making sure that we're having an environment that's inclusive to women and minorities?
No, that's great, and I think it's important that you shared some of that piece. Have there been any challenges specific to being of Asian American descent that has also been part of that? journey?
Yeah, based on data and studies that I've seen and I've worked on, is that Asian American women tend to be stereotypically considered as soft-spoken, meek, not aggressive. And so when it comes time to promotion for partnership or leadership position, they may be passed over because they're not considered, quote, leadership material or rainmakers of the firm. They're good at, being machines or doing, the hard work and so on, but they might not have the soft skills needed to become a rainmaker.
But you've defied that assumption.
I'm trying very hard. Yes.
So how important has, in your career trajectory, as you think about things that have really helped you to propel your career forward, could you talk about how your role in the community has really contributed to your success?
Absolutely. I think my involvement in the community is probably one of the most significant factors to where I'm at now. Even though I've donated a lot of volunteer time and serving on nonprofits and community boards, what I've donated is actually nothing compared to what I've received in return. The networking, the leadership opportunities, the friendships, and the relationships have been so significant in so many parts of my career and also in my personal life too. Just having friends to be there for you, because life happens and things. Life happens and things happen in your personal life, and you have a community there to support you. I'm recently a single mom of 2, and the community has been so supportive of me. And really, it takes a village to maintain this kind of career. And I'm so thankful for the community for that.
And so, as you think about the things that you've done in the community, a lot of young attorneys will talk about how busy they are. They don't have time to be involved in the community because they want to focus on their work. What advice can you give that young attorney about how important it is to be part of that community that might help them?
Yeah, well, first off, I do have to say that I tell young lawyers that it's important to hone your craft, to be an excellent lawyer. That's, should be everyone's number one goal. But to really succeed, it's so important to get out of your offices and go out there and know your neighbor, and go out in the community. Be a good firm citizen or a company citizen, and volunteer, get engaged, know your coworkers, but also outside your office, because sometimes you do need to have a lifeline or someone to talk to that's outside your company for advice and mentoring.
So you've advanced in your career, you've become managing partner at Duane Morris. A lot of people may or may not know exactly what that entails. Could you talk about the role of a managing partner at a large law firm and what that role really requires to succeed?
Yeah, I would consider a managing partner almost as like a mini CEO of this office. So I'm accountable for everybody at the firm, from our senior partners to our logistics or staff members like our receptionists and our legal assistants, paralegals, and so on. And everybody is important to me, to making sure that they're having a satisfactory time and opportunity at work. And I think it's a lot about relationship building with the people in the office, and it's also making sure that the whole machine is well oiled and that we're delivering excellent legal services so that we're efficient, that we're productive, that we're responsive to our clients, and we all act with a sense of integrity.
And so if you were giving advice to a young aspiring attorney that wants to work their way up in a law firm and become a partner and maybe eventually becoming a managing partner at that law firm, what advice would you give to an early career attorney or even a law school student? What advice would you give them that might really give them that leg up or really get them headed in the right direction toward achieving some of the successes that resemble what you've achieved?
Okay, so I'm going to repeat a couple of things that I said before, which is be an excellent lawyer, be a good firm or company citizen, be involved in the community, and also seek a mentor and a sponsor, because there's always people who've done it before, or they might have some insider knowledge that you might not have, and information is so key to navigating a law firm. So find people who you can, you trust and who you could talk to, and be engaged. I mean, know what's going on in the world, know what's going on in your company or your industry. If you're industry focused, learn about developments in the law. And that's, I think, part of the recipe for success.
Oh, that's great. And we're going to have you back in just a few minutes to help us with our Q&A, because we have questions from our audience. But I want to thank you so much for this part of the show and for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cyndie. It's now time for the Leadership Voices Leadership Example. Today's leadership example is Vault's Law 100 rankings for 2017. This ranking is based on scores from more than 18,000 law firm associates surveyed. So we bring you the top 10 most prestigious law firms in the U.S. Hear that? You know what that means. It's time for today's leadership lesson. Today's lesson is being delivered by Professor Charles Smith. So let's take 3 minutes and listen up.
I'm Professor Charles Smith, and here is today's leadership lesson. You've probably heard the old business adage, follow the money, to really understand priorities. For example, when you are buying a car, you ask how much. When you are considering a new job, you ask what's the salary. But is money really all that matters today? Traditionally, new lawyers prioritize salary over everything else. But today is a new day. The notion that lawyers follow the money in order to be happy is outdated with our new crop of millennial lawyers. Higher pay does not equate to greater happiness, and unsatisfied lawyers will not stay at your firm for long. This new outlook can manifest itself in a few ways. First, over the past few decades, we have strived for the work-life balance. The goal is to achieve a balanced life where a hardworking professional can manage to have a life. However, millennials reject this balance in favor of a work-life blend. Their goal is for work to be an enhancing and inspiring aspect of life, not some sort of necessary evil to be balanced against life. One way to promote the work-life blend is to provide the opportunity to work outside of the standard business hours of Monday through Friday, 8 to 6. A second is to allow lawyers to work outside of the office. By allowing lawyers to work according to their personal peak days, times, and places, greater job satisfaction and productivity may result. Optimally, this can be a win-win situation for the lawyer and the firm. Third, firms need to improve the workplace experience. After all, 3/4 of millennials say that it is more important to enjoy their work than to make a lot of money. The big salary no longer guarantees years of loyal service. A firm should make its office a social center that young attorneys will feel justifies the life and time investment. Social activities, whether organized or spontaneous, can strengthen the bond between members of your firm. A fourth suggestion is to encourage the practice of law as service beyond a mere billing exercise. This can be achieved through pro bono work as well as civil rights or community work. Times are changing. We are moving away from lawyers seeking only the big bucks, and now the new breed of lawyers want work that is personally satisfying. Just as the move from typewriters to computers shook the workplace in the 1980s, today the legal industry must make the fundamental shift to create a preferred workplace at each firm. The bottom line is that follow the money is not the be-all, end-all for our millennial lawyers. Instead, firms must optimize the work-life blend so that our lawyers can best reach their potential. I'm Professor Charles Smith, and this has been your leadership lesson.
Thank you, Professor Smith, for that insightful leadership lesson. It's now time for the Leadership Voices Q&A. Do you need some leadership advice? Well, you've come to the right place. Every show we take questions from you, our viewers, and answer them right here on the show. Today we have 4 questions, 2 for each of our guests. So let's get to our Q&A. Our first question is for Cyndie Chang. Cyndie, it comes from Sandra Y. in Pasadena, California. She asks, what sacrifices will a female attorney have to be prepared to make in order to succeed in the legal industry, to become partner, etc.?
Thank you, Sandra, for that question. You know, I think about my career, and I don't know if it's necessarily what I would call sacrifices, but I think it's an understanding and embrace that there's been a lot of compromises and different priorities about what I want to achieve. And, at different times, the balance is off. Like I find it hard to balance everything. And what I found is I have to prioritize different things at different stages in my career. To give you an example, last year I was president of a National Bar Association, and I had to travel a lot and be away from home for speaking engagements and conferences and so on. And it was my choice that I would be away from my home and away from my young kids. And I was okay with that because I knew that the work that I was doing in that leadership position would be something they would appreciate maybe later in life because of the work that I was doing on civil rights and advocacy and mentoring and inspiring other young attorneys. So, whether you call it a sacrifice or not is not something that, that's what I would use, but it's something it's an understanding of a choice that I made, and I prioritized my career last year. But, I think that I'm still a great mother for doing that kind of work and inspiring them in other ways.
That's great.
Yeah, so both Cyndie and I, for the viewers who haven't heard, we're both mothers and we both have 2 young children. And like Cyndie says, it's not about sacrifices, it's just about giving and taking in our everyday life. So we all have 24 hours in a day. And time that we're at the office, yes, we're not with their families, we're not with our children, but there are, stay-at-home parents that are home all day and they're not really spending quality time with their kids. So it's about, the time we do have with their family, spending quality time with them, not being on the TV or on the phone, but setting the phone aside. And my kids and I, we have eye contact time where we just look at each other straight in the eye and we say nothing and we just express our love for each other with that. And even a minute of that is more important to them than an hour of time, surrounding me where I'm not really focused on them. So it's really about, like Cyndie says, constant work-life balance and finding ways around it.
Oh, that's great. So it's not so much just purely about sacrifice, but it's about prioritizing and making the most of all of your choices.
Exactly, yes.
Great. So our second question is for Elizabeth Yang, and it comes from Hung in Rowland Heights, California. Hung asks, can an ESL attorney succeed in the legal industry? What advice do you have for someone that wants a good career but is worried about the language limitations?
So great question, Hung, and I'm so glad he asked that because, to answer the question, yes, it's definitely possible for an ESL attorney to be successful. In my industry, I am bilingual in both English and Mandarin, and I'll say more than half of my clientele in the San Gabriel Valley area, where we have our Monterey Park office, are Chinese speakers. And I actually do more advertising in Chinese on the Chinese newspapers, Chinese radio stations, than in the English advertising media because of the amount of people out there that prefer Chinese attorneys. So ESL attorneys, if they are bilingual, they're actually going to have a more specific niche that they can market to and be more successful in that area. And some of my top staff, they're all bilingual because they can read and write and translate documents for the clients.
I agree with that. So, well, first off, I've worked with ESL attorneys, and if they've struggled with the English language, I've seen that they can master the English language by taking classes in several years. But from a business development perspective, I find that bilingual attorneys are value adds to the firm because just the fact that our business is a global environment. Even when I'm looking at resumes or submissions for candidacy at our firm, I am attracted to people who speak a second language because I've seen in so many occasions where we'll have a client that has an international focus or they're from a foreign country, and we need to have that language ability at our firm. It's adding more service to our clients. So I think it's actually a great benefit.
Oh, that's great. So our third question is back to Cyndie Chang, and it comes from Ha-Tien in Stanton, California. Ha-Tien asks, as a woman in law school right now, I wonder how long it realistically will take to rise up to become a partner at a law firm. Are there things I should be doing now to position myself best?
Yes, so I would say that and it's different in various law firms because there's different sizes and there's different paths. And obviously, Liz here has started her own law firm. At my law firm and maybe similar size law firm, I would say it could be somewhere on the average plus or minus around 10 years to answer that part of the question. And everyone's path is different in getting to partnership. Now, in terms of advice for a young lawyer, I would say be open and flexible to opportunities. If you're too focused on one thing and you're not realizing that there might be a career path that's right in front of you, is one piece of advice. And I also think it's important to start thinking about an industry focus so that you're really good at something, which will help you to become partner. If you're known to be the XYZ lawyer and everyone's going to call you, that really will help you with your development in that particular niche.
So like Cyndie said, everyone has a different path, and I've seen people become partner in like 6 years, versus 10 or more years. And it comes down to building your own book of business. So the top attorneys are not necessarily the ones that provide the best legal work, from my experience. It's actually the ones who can bring in the most business. So to become a partner after you've been at a firm for a certain number of years, if you don't have your book of business, no matter how good your work is, if you're not bringing money in for the firm, they're going to be very hesitant to make you partner. And if you're a lateral attorney going from one firm to another, one of the criteria they look at is how big is your book of business. So attorneys are like salespeople, and the best advice I can provide is networking. Meet a lot of people in the industry or in different industry. Meet in-house counsel, for the large firms. For smaller businesses, just meet people, individuals, small companies, small business owners, and you just never know where your next referral is going to come from.
Oh, that's great. Great question. Great answer. So our fourth question is for Elizabeth Yang. It comes from Tim in Laguna Hills. Tim asks, how do you make the decision to start your own firm as opposed to taking the partner career path? How do I know which is the better path for me?
Thank you for that question, Tim. So everyone has different personalities, and I think it ultimately depends on each person's personality and also the lifestyle that you want to lead. Cyndie and I, we both have our work-life balances. We balance our family and our careers, but it's very different. Firm life, there's a lot of billable hours. For me as an entrepreneur and business owner, even though I don't have the mandatory billable hours of a large firm, any business owner knows they're working 24/7. It doesn't matter if it's evenings, weekends, we always have to be responsive to our clients. But at the same time, the benefit is we set our own hours. So I don't have to go in at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning. I can take my kids to school and then go in later in the morning, and then in the evening I can pick them up from school, spend time with them, and after they go to sleep, then I can finish up the rest of my work. So I set my own hours, but I have to be available to my clients whether or not I'm in the office or on vacation or if it's a weekend.
And one of the things I want to commend Liz for is when you start your own law firm, you are an entrepreneur. There is a lot of risk involved, and versus, for example, with me at my law firm, there's hundreds and hundreds of lawyers around, and so if I leave, if I leave or if I take a vacation, I know that the ship will be fine because there's a whole bunch of other lawyers around. If Liz leaves, she's the leader of her office, and so there's a different kind of structure. And for Tim, the only way that you're going to know is trying it out or just talking to people. But we can't answer that question. Obviously, it's he's going to have to figure that out. But there's pros and cons of each kind of business environment.
Okay, well, that was our final question. I want to thank you both for taking questions from our audience. Great answers. You were able to really give our viewers some things to think about and some good lessons to guide them in their career. So I want to thank you both for being a part of the Q&A session.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Jay.
So this has been the Leadership Voices Q&A. Thanks again to Cyndie and Elizabeth for helping us sort through today's Q&A. If you have a question or need advice, you know what to do. Send us your questions here to Leadership Voice by email, leadershipvoice@fullerton.edu, or contact us by Twitter @CSUF_leadership. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today's show. Today we learned about leadership in the legal industry, and especially some of the career and diversity challenges that Asian women in the industry may face in the partner path or in the sole proprietor path to success. Thank you to our guests today, Elizabeth Yang and Cyndie Chang, for sharing and joining us. With special thanks also to Professor Charles Smith for delivering today's leadership lesson. Join us each episode of The Leadership Voice as we have more executive guests, another special leadership lesson, and lots more worth tuning in to see. I'm Jay Barbuto, and on behalf of the Center for Leadership, we'll see you right here next time on The Leadership Voice.